In this session, we'll be creating the Docker files for our two applications that we created in the last videos. So Dockerfile is actually a text file in, you can say, instructions and argument format, where we'll tell like what kind of base image we want and where is our source code located, and like what will be the entry point, like the first command that will be running inside the container, and like on which port it will be running. So we'll be exposing that port. Let's create the two Docker files one by one. So let me just SSH on our application server. Let me create another session. The private key devops.pam. Okay, let me enter the username. It's Ubuntu. So if you remember, we uploaded our source code on the GitHub repository. We need to do a pull request, but before that we'll be creating two separate directories here, where we can easily pull the codes. Let me create the directory, or we can do one thing. It's not required to create directories. When we'll be pulling the code, then directory by the name application 1 and application 2 will get automatically created. Let me just show you the GitHub repositories again. So this is our first repository, application 1, and the another one was the application 2, these two. Okay, so let's pull the codes. So we have two mechanisms to clone the repository, either by HTTPS or by SSH. Let's go by this HTTPS approach. So this is the repository URL. We just need to do git clone. Okay, so it has been cloned now. We can check. So application 1 directory has been created. We can check. We have the required code over here. Let's clone let's clone the second repository. Just copy the code from here. Just copy it, git clone, and paste the URL. So another application 2 directory will get created, which will contain the source code for the application 2. Okay, so these three files are there. Now for both of these applications, we'll need a Docker file. So we'll create the Docker file for application 1 first. Let me switch to root, nano, Docker file. Make sure you name the file as Docker file only, or you need to provide the actual name while running the build command. Okay, so the Docker file always start from the base image by the from instruction. So I'll be taking the latest node image. Then I need to define the working directory inside the container. So let's say like it's usr/src/app. Okay, and now we need to copy the content. So we'll be copying this package.json and package.log.json. So just put a wildcard. Okay, and we'll be placing inside the working directory. Then we need to run npm install just to copy. And if you remember, for the first code, it has been exposed to port 3000, and the second one is exposed to port 4000. Let's define the entry point. So entry point is the command that will be running inside the container. Okay, so it is like node index.js. In that format, it's index.js. Well, everything looks fine. Let's test this file first, whether the Docker file is perfectly written. If it's perfectly done, then image will get created and the container will get easily started. Let's build the image. The command for this is docker build -t. T is the tag name. So I'll be giving a tag as DevOps/application1, and here I need to specify where the Docker file is. So it's in current directory. Let's check. So the instructions that we have given in the order, so commands will get executed while building the image in the same order only. So since we are building it for the first time, and the node image will be approx 800 to 900 MB, so it will take some time. So now it's inside. So everything is done now. We can check by Docker images. So this image has been created, DevOps application 1. Let's run the container, docker run -d. It's in detached mode. Then we need to map the host port with the container port. We need to give the name of the container. I'll say like application 1. This will be the best name. And then I need to define the image name. Okay, so the container is running. Let's check. Okay, it's running. Let me just do a curl request on, I'll say localhost port 3000, and if you remember, the APIs were product 1. So we are getting the appropriate response, the product 2 also, and product 3 also. So it's done. Now we'll head over to the application 2, where we need to create the same Docker file. Let's do one thing, just copy that file cp. I'll say like /home ubuntu application 1 and the Docker file. Let's paste it over here. Okay, so here's the Docker file. Just added this Docker file. Just added this Docker file for this application too. Well, everything will remain the same except this port 4000. Let's save the file. Let's build the image. Docker build -t. We'll give the tag name as DevOps /application 2. Okay, so the step 1 to 4 are completed in no time, just because we have already did this in the last image. So the image is successfully created. Now we need to run this container, docker run -d. Let's map the ports. So host port is 4000 and the container port is 4000 again. Then let's give a name to the container. I'll give it as application 2, and we need to use the image ID. Let's pick it. So it is also running now. So you can see 2 containers are running. Let's check whether port 4000 APIs are working or not. So it's like, if you remember, it was under the vegetables section, it was port product 4 and product 5. So we are getting the response from here, and for the product 5, yeah. So we have successfully created the Docker file and the containers are successfully running.